Summer routines live or die by how easy they are. And honestly, if something takes too much effort, I'm out. That's why Groons is my go-to. It's my one daily pack of gummies covering my greens, vitamins, and minerals. Plus, it has 6 grams of prebiotic fiber, which is more than 2 cups of broccoli. No mixing powders, no giant pills, no hassle. I just rip open the pack and I'm done. They taste good and they make it easy to stay on top of my health, even when life gets busy. Save up to 52% with the code PODCAST at Groons.co. That's code PODCAST at GRUNS.co.
It's a big day for our network, big day for TalkNorth.com. We haven't been talking enough about women's sports or women in sports. We also really wanted to have Dawn Mitchell on this network. And so we are very lucky to be introducing Dawn of Sports. This is our new sports show with Dawn Mitchell from Fox 9. You know who she is. And you should know by now what Talk North is. This is our network we've been building up for a long time. This is a great boost for us. It's going to be a lot of fun. Today's show, we will have Mark Rosen on later to help us introduce the show. But welcome to Dawn Mitchell, who actually is on our network. Brandon, we're very lucky.
Oh, thank you so much. I feel like we need like one of those lights where the sunrise kind of comes up.
Oh, let's just say it's a podcast. We can just say that that's happening.
That's
People can just
exactly.
admit
It's so bright in here.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I've been wanting to do this with you too, Jim, since we've known each other for so long. And not only through your writings, but knowing you as a person, just to have discussions about things, whether we agree with them or not. I just think that what you see when you're on a newscast and what you see from like me in particular, you only get a little bit. And we'll have 30 seconds to maybe do a highlight or to tell something, or, minute 30 for a whole story. That there's so much more. So thank you for letting me have a voice.
Well, we're thrilled to have you. This is going to be a lot of fun. Just to set the table, we're going to do a lot of different segments. We'll always talk about women in sports in some way on this show. Some shows it might be a lot. Some shows it might be just a segment, but we're always going to get to that. We're also going to get to all the other things that Dawn does. She covers the Vikings. She covers all the teams in town. She has a great history. She knows. She's going to tell you stories about Larry Bird and George Karl. We're both going to tell you a lot of behind-the-scenes stories. That's one thing, on all the other shows I do, we don't always get to that because we're always doing such topical stuff. On this show, we're going to tell you what it's like to do a broadcast and run a broadcast in Dawn's case, or what it's like to work on deadline or behind the scenes. We have some great stories to tell. Mark's probably going to tell some stories like that as well. Just to remind you, this is TalkNorth.com. Brandon Morton is our producer. Our sponsors on the show right now are All Energy Solar, allenergysolar.com, and Rudy Luther Toyota. If you'd like to sponsor Dawn's show, you can reach our sales executive, Karen Cleary, at KCLEARY at talknorth.com. And we do appreciate everybody who sponsors these shows and everybody who listens. We can't do it without you. So let's just get to why you're in this business. You've been doing this for a while. You've been in different markets. You've been one of the most prominent people in this market. Why did you get into this business, and why did you stay in this business? Because you could have done other things.
Yeah, I could have done other things. And, when you're scraping your way through the first few years, you really think about doing other things, right? Sometimes you have to just to pay your rent. But when I grew up, I don't know. I always played sports. I had 4 brothers, no sisters. My dad was a lot older than my mom, and he tried out for the Brooklyn Dodgers. That's a lot older than my mom, and was cut when he was a teenager. So, I had my own glove when I was a little kid. My dad oiled it, put twine around it, rolled the car over it. So when his daughter...
That's what we did in the old days, Brandon.
That's right. Because when you caught it, it popped, right? Yep. And it was a Wilson glove, which is why I later named my dog Wilson, one of the reasons. But when you're with the 4 boys, you're the one stuck in right field, right? She can't hit. Well, I learned to hit, but I had a pretty good arm. So my dad said, listen, when you throw that ball, you're going to learn how to throw. So just growing up that way and then playing sports my entire life, it didn't dawn on me, no pun intended, until I was in college at Boston College. And we had a guy from one of the local channels in town, and it was the philosophy of sports. Basically, we woke up a lot of the athletes that fell asleep in that class. But I remember it was this guy, Mike Lynch, and he's talking about it. And I'm like, I could totally do that. And so I raised my hand and asked a question, and it wasn't like, can a woman do that? But it was more of a, what do you do about blah, blah, blah? And it was started a discussion. He said, you could totally do this. And I was like, I did not think about being on air, though. I just thought about being in that realm. So my senior year in college, I interned at a different, not Mike's. He saw me later and called me a traitor. But I interned at WBZ in Boston with this guy, Bob Lobel, who was like the Mark Rosen of Boston at the time. Mark Lobel, I'm mixing the two of the guys, Bob Lobel. And I grew up watching Lobie. You watch Bob Lobel back then, you just watched it. And I loved him. And I interned for him. His assistant graduated and moved on. And when I was graduating, he says, I have a part-time job. It's only 15 hours a week, but it's yours. So before I graduated Boston College, 2 weeks before, I started working with him. So then I just walked to a independent station in town that had the Red Sox and the Bruins. It's TV 38 at the time. I walked in the door and asked what jobs they had. They had a receptionist job, and I had to pay student loans coming up. I paid for BC, So I said, all right, I answered phones at that TV station, and then I started stage managing, as they call it, for their Bruins and the Red Sox. And then I would, in between, I would race down and work for Lobel. So I worked like 3 or 4 jobs. So there's a lot of young kids who be like, well, it's easy for you to say, Dawn, you're on air. And I'm like, no, I did that job. Like, I was in the broadcast booth handing the guys the card to go to break or a stat or something like that. And then I would run back and go answer phones at this station, I just fell into it. So the first time I was asked to be on air was at Nesson, because I was working TV 38 in Nesson, had the Red Sox and the Bruins. So like, hey, we need someone to do the boothing for Nesson. So I got to know them. And one of the women, Amy Stone, she was leaving, and she asked for my internship tape. She goes, hey, she was sneaky about it. Do you have an internship tape from BZ? I'm like, yeah, from like 2 years ago. She was, I just want to look at it. I've got some young girls that want to, I think about being into it. No, she took my tape and gave it to the boss. And I got a phone call. Hey, we're starting this new show on the weekends. And he's talking about it vaguely. And I'm like, you want me to produce it and write for it? He goes, yes. And I'm like, okay. He goes, oh, and anchor. Kind of like.
Just anchor.
Come on, kid,
Nesson.
you could do it.
By the way, Nesson is a huge deal.
Yeah, New England Sports Network.
Yeah.
So Bob Whitelaw was the man who first put me on air. God bless him. Still love that man to this day. He was like, listen, kid, you're writing everything and handing it off for everyone else to say. I want you to come in, put some makeup on, and say it yourself. And the rest is history.
Yeah, no kidding.
I haven't looked back, so.
That's great.
Long-winded, but it's never an easy step. Like I just woke up and here I am.
No, never. And I started off typing in box scores, making $6 an hour with no benefits. So most of us of our generation who made it this far, we had pretty humble beginnings. Mm-hmm. At least most of the people I know who did it. We'll see. We'll ask Mark Rosen about his start later. All right. So every week we're gonna talk about whatever is topical. We're also going to go through some certain segments. We're going to be telling you more about Dawn, her career, her views on sports journalism, women in sports, and everything else. But we're also going to have a lot of fun with this. So this segment is going to be called Take It From Us. This is each of our favorite takes of the week. I will start off just to set the table. Here's my strange but true take. I actually think the Vikings are a good team. They're 0-2. Everybody's mad at them. Everybody thinks the season's over with already. There are already rumors that they should, or speculation that they should be trading Kirk Cousins. It's all crazy. They're one game out of the division lead. A lot of the deeper metrics show that they're actually probably a better team this year than they were last year. They were never going to win on Thursday night in Philadelphia, so losing that game is not that big a deal. They should have beaten Tampa Bay week 1, yes. So they're one game off the ideal pace, but the division is not very good. Jefferson and Cousins are going to have huge years. Addison's going to have a big year. Hawkinson's going to have a big year. It's a passing league, and they have one of the best passing offenses. I think actually signing Dalton Risner to start at guard, probably, we don't know yet, probably for Ingram, if not for Ingram for Cleveland. That could be a major upgrade for an offensive line, which is the weakness on this team. Listen, it's probably not going to be an easy road, but I think this team's going to – I still think this team's going to win the division.
I don't know if I'll go as far as them beating the Lions to win the division, but
Okay.
I do think that they are better than people say. But I have to agree with you 100%. I am not shocked that they're having issues only game 3 with the offensive line.
Yep.
It is kind of like there's a train coming. Do you see the train coming? And then the train hits you and you're like, wow, that train hit me. It's like, we told you the train was coming. I know that there is they have to look at money. They have to pay Justin Jefferson still. Or, is Kirk going to be back? I understand that. But the teams that succeed in the NFL are the guys with the really good lines. You get the offensive line and the defensive line. Oli Udoh, I was in the locker room. I saw him leaving. That's bad. He's not coming back anytime soon. No. He left on the same crutches that I had, the nice fancy ones, the little, Moby legs, but he had a huge brace on his left leg, and you're already down. Garrett Bradbury is already hurt, his back injury. Suffice it to say, thank God Reisner's on his way. Even if he is just a warm body who hasn't played, he got paid, he's going to be there. At this point, you're triaging your offensive line. That concerns me. I'm not concerned with the rest of the people. I was a big question mark on the defense. Like, what's it going to look like? It's kind of like, what Christmas? Like, did mom and dad really get me what I wanted? Or am I going to get like that, like off-brand, Like, that's a Christmas time, right? You're always like, it's okay, but it's not the PlayStation. It's just, no, I was surprised because I'd never seen that. So I'm like, gosh, the defense is there. You don't hear people crying about the cornerbacks for a change. Yes, I agree with you. I just think the Lions are strong.
I think the Lions are overrated.
Huh.
And I don't think they would have beaten the Chiefs if the Chiefs had been healthy week 1. They just lost at home to a pretty good but not great Seattle team. I think the Lions are pretty good. I think the Vikings play the way they should. They win the division. That's my view. What's your take this week?
My take this week that the Vikings, this is a must win. I think the Vikings are going to win. I do. I don't think it's going to be like a blowout. But I think it's going to be a close. I think it's going to be a field goal. But they're going to win, and the monkey's going to be off the back. But it's a must win. But I think they'll actually come through.
All right, we are moving on now to agree to disagree or just agree because we don't
kind of like we already did.
Yeah, I know. But and you know what? That's one of the reasons I started this network is I got tired in traditional radio of all these staged arguments.
Oh, yeah.
If we agree, great. If we don't agree, that's great too. But we're not going to stage anything. Let's run through a few quick hit topics here. All right. Justin Jefferson is going to break the all-time receiving record this season. Yes or no?
For yards?
Yes.
Yes.
I agree with you. I think he's on pace. I think the only thing that keeps him from doing it is an injury because I think they've already shown they know how to scheme him open even when against defenses that are going up against them. And I just think he's that good. And I think Cousins is online to get him the ball as much as he needs to get it. All right, number 2.
Yes.
The Gophers football team is going kind of nowhere.
Agree.
Yeah. I don't think
Sorry, PJ.
I know. I just don't think they can throw the ball well enough. I actually like Taylor a lot. They're going to be able to run the ball a certain amount, but I just think the passing game was going to have to advance this year for them to be good, and I just don't know if I see it.
Yeah, this last game, and you knew that going up against number 20 team in the nation, right? You knew that it wasn't going to be pretty, but I don't know. No, I'm agreeing with you on that one.
Number 3, the Lynx have overachieved or just achieved?
I think they've overachieved for this year, especially how they started.
Yeah.
Right, 0-7, 0-8
0-6,
or something. Yeah. The way they started, I do think that, but I'm happy because that's something to build on in this playoff series. Because as of this taping, tomorrow is game 3 and they're going up against the Sun. I think they're going to beat them. I don't know if they're built for the long run in this year, but so I think they have overachieved, but I still think that they have got more to do.
I think they've already overachieved. I thought this is like an 8th or 9th place team in terms of talent entering the season. And then they started off badly. And they've actually, for them to get to the 6th seed to me is overachieving. For them to beat the Sun on the road in a playoff game is overachieving. So I think they've already overachieved no matter what happens. We're recording this on Tuesday. The next Lynx game is Wednesday night, of course. I kind of hope they win because that'd be fun to cover them during an actual long postseason for the first time in a long time. Last one on agree to disagree or just agree. Royce Lewis is by far the Twins' best player.
Ooh, now that Carlos Correa is hurt again,
Yeah.
I don't know. He wasn't the best anyway.
Right.
I'm going to go with yes.
I think he is. I think it's clear he's their
This
best
is
hitter.
agree to agree.
We're going to agree
I
to
love
agree.
that.
He's
We're
their
going
best
to
hitter.
agree, yes.
He's by far their best hitter. He's
Uh-huh.
by far their best clutch hitter. Since he's come up, he's been their best power hitter.
Yes.
He's a good fielder. He's a good base runner. I don't even know who's number 2 at the point.
Yeah,
at this
he's
point.
solid all around.
Yeah, he really is.
And I know Carlos, but he is injured with that plantar fasciitis is
Yep.
what he has. But let's take that aside. Maybe he's had it all year. He's hitting like 230. It's kind of been such a down year for him. But when you look at the other guys on the team, you just have to wow, who knew that this would happen? I love to see what Royce Lewis has done. And on top of it, he's the nicest guy in the world.
He's the best. He really is. He's one of the most polite, engaging young athletes I've ever been around.
I think somebody told me once one of the hotter games, now don't quote me, but it was someone that was there. He was buying snacks and refreshments for the fans in the stands. Crazy.
He's that kind of guy. He really is.
Love it. So So I'm going to say yes, even if he's whiffs the whole game, next game. Yes.
All right. Now we're going to do our women in sports segment for this week.
Yes.
Let's talk about the Lynx because, I wondered going into the season whether this is a good year to tank. I didn't think they were going to be good. You have Beckers and Caitlin Clark on the horizon. We don't know exactly when they're going to declare for the draft, but of course, if the Lynx got either one of those players, it would be great for them, not only in terms of basketball, but in terms of bringing people in. Both would bring in a lot of fans. And they start 0-6, and that they refuse to tank, and now they make the playoffs. They win a playoff game. To me, again, the season's a success. But it is fascinating, and I really think it comes down to the fact that even if you could sell Cheryl Reeve on the idea of tanking as the right strategic move, I just don't think she could stomach it.
No.
I don't think she could stomach chasing fans away, damaging their economic profile, damaging their standing in the league. I just don't think she has it in her to tank, even if you could say it's the right thing to do.
And even integrity-wise, I don't think that she's not built that way,
I think
right?
that's exactly right. I do think and I really do think it's about integrity because you really are selling out your program and your league when you tank.
Right. Well, let me tell you one thing that's off the court that I love about Cheryl Reeve this year. Her T-shirt game is by far
fantastic.
The best I have ever seen in my life. She should start a line. I would buy them all. She should, every single one. So I'm thinking hey, I'm waiting for this home playoff game.
Yep.
She's going to come out, take the blazer off, pretend you're mad and throw it around again. I want to see that T-shirt full on first, put the blazer back on because she's been amazing. But when it comes to the actual team, what I really love, and she gets credit, but I don't think she gets enough, is K-Mac. McBride is amazing. They sign her. She's gritty. She's exactly what this team needs. You have Diamond Miller, you've got Nafisa Collier, but you need someone who's going to get down and dirty and gritty in there. And you also, and I just adore her. And I don't care what people say, but when I'm just going to call her Ms. Gopher. You know who she is. Dropping bombs from 3-point land. A woman that never was given enough credit, I think, to make the WNBA. And we're talking about Rachel Banham, if you haven't figured it out. But Rachel, she even was coaching the Gophers and then came back to the WNBA and does well. She is the core of that chemistry on that team. So I would say if there's an unsung hero, you look behind the scenes, that's I love and live for behind the scenes. She is always there, showing her braids, or they're dancing, or what fit someone's wearing, and whenever there's somebody celebrating something, it's Banham in the middle of it. They're singing songs like a soccer team to come out before they hit the court. That I think that's just that chemistry alone. Maybe that has taken this talent and maybe made it supersede what it should or could have been.
And I think you hit on two really key players, because obviously Collier's their star and Diamond Miller's they hope their rising star. McBride, when they signed her as a free agent, I think they thought they would get more out of her early in her time here. Mm-hmm. And she would have a big game. She'd hit a big shot, but it was always up and down, And this year she has surged, and she was a lot of times the best player on the court in their playoff win at Connecticut. I don't know that I saw that coming. And you're right. It's a combination of shooting ability, which you have to have, but also the toughness to take the tough defensive assignment, to get the loose ball, to chase down the offensive rebound. And she's a strong player. They couldn't do it would not have gotten this far without her. And Rachel Banham, she's just one of the best people in the marketplace, right? She's a blast. She's a lot of fun. She's a sweetheart. And she also comes off the bench and makes long 3-pointers.
Yeah.
And there's no substitute for that.
Yeah. You need all of the above.
Yeah. What do you think of the new women's hockey league?
I'm excited for that, but I'm baffled by it in the same token, because the last one, they had already expanded their salary cap, so I thought that was taking off. And then all of a sudden you hear rumblings that there's going to be another one. So I'm just hoping, for the sake of women's hockey, that it's organized and it succeeds, because the talent is out there and they've shown that people want to go see it. Just kind of level it off, pay the women, so they don't have to do 12 other things, work 3 other jobs, pay them enough. All right. Okay. So they're not going to be making millions of dollars like the NHL. But maybe someday.
Why not?
You don't know. Build it and they will come. Right.
Yeah. Well, and this one feels bigger, and a big part of starting a new league and having success in a new league is playing the part, looking the part. They had Billie Jean King at their opening draft. They have some big celebrities signed on. They have great players. It feels bigger and better formed than I liked the last league, but it always felt like it was a struggle. And I admire the people who did the work and got that league that far. But part of this is optics. Part of it is looking big enough and polished enough that you can attract networks and advertisers. And it just feels like this league has a better chance, even though I really admire what the last league did.
And if they do it exactly in cities, which they are, where there's already an established NHL team, and do that, that's really going, because you already have a fan base, and you also have colleges that are producing these women that have been playing. So you're already like, oh, I want to see where she goes. Well, if you can get that local favorite or someone from the Olympic team on your team and get people in there, sure, people are going to show up and do it. But yes, make it look big. Don't make it look like,
Don't make it look like JV high school competition.
Yeah. Like, oh, okay. Oh, and here's I think the worst thing that happened, first of all, I can't even remember the order of the letters of the last one. PWHL?
HL, I believe. And I'm embarrassed to not know that, because I know I've written it. PWHL, yeah, Professional Women's Hockey League.
Okay. That's the last one.
Yes.
There's so many consonants in my life. Throw me a vowel. I'm like, was it a P before the W? Like WNBA, you know what it is, right? Oh,
I'm sorry. PWHL is the new one.
See, that makes sense. The last one did not.
The last one, I'm absolutely blank on it.
Yeah, if we can find that. I was always like, I can't even remember it, and I do sports. I'm like, the one that's not the P.
PHL, Premier Hockey Federation, PHF, Premier Hockey Federation.
Yeah, there was so many incarnations that I got lost.
And what?
Listen, where are we at this
point? I went
point?
through this. Brandon knows I went through this when I started this network. I tried different names, and you have to find a name that people immediately recognize.
Should have been WNHL. That's what it should have been.
Yes, it should have been. And I'm sure they had some copywriting problems or whatever.
Exactly.
But you're right.
It should have been.
It should have been, because that people would have remembered that.
Yeah.
We will talk about the Minnesota Aurora in the future. We will have our friend Andre Yak on as a guest. Dawn does broadcasts, and does some work with the Aurora. We're going to save a good hefty segment on them for a future show. For this edition of Women in Sports, let's just congratulate Mara Braun for winning the international 3-on-3 competition with Team USA. I'm really looking forward to watching her play for the Gophers this year.
Yeah, it's going to be fantastic. I'm really excited. Whenever you can get excited before someone comes into the college realm, that's always big. But then it's people like you and me, like, yeah, well, I covered her when she was in high school.
Yep.
Next thing you know, she's in some Hall of Fame. Lindsay Whalen,
It's going to happen. I really think Mara's the next great player over there, and that's going to be fun to watch.
What do you like most about her?
Mara?
Yeah.
She's like so many young athletes, especially young women athletes. She's just so composed, and it's not a college athlete's job to be like a good interview or to be polished in all situations. So if someone isn't, that's not a negative, but it's just so impressive how many college women basketball players I've been around, college athletes, they just handle everything so well. And I think they grew up playing in national tournaments. They grew up traveling. They grew up playing against great competition. They've been watching ESPN all their lives, so they get the interview realm and how it goes. And she's just one of those people who you just feel like she can handle all of this.
Yeah, and I'm really looking forward to what Dawn Plitzwhite can do with her.
Yeah.
You brought up exactly, you took the words from my brain and put them into your words, because when you see her play on the court, she's ice.
Yeah.
Right? And I mean like smooth, like that clear ice that you can't wait to get on, like in the winter. That's how she plays. Not like ice in her veins, she has that too, but it's just that it's perfect. And when you interview someone like that and they remain calm but that strong calm, that's what I see from her. And so I'm like, and underneath lies the soul of a killer on the court. You know what I mean? It's like, it's that kind of play. So I'm looking forward to her just kind of taking off. So.
Couple more segments left. We're going to talk with Mark Rosen. Do want to let you know that all energy solar panel installations are done right and made easy thanks to more than 14 years of experience in Minnesota and beyond. Visit allenergysolar.com/coach today to find your free solar evaluation. Also want to let you know that All Energy Solar is ready to take any solar project from design to installation, everything in between for your home or business. Again, allenergysolar.com/coach, or just go to allenergysolar.com and check out everything you need to know about solar energy. Thanks also to a longtime sponsor, Rudy Luther Toyota.
Ready for a women-forward car dealership? Rudy Luther Toyota empowers their many women on staff in sales, management, and service. Whether you are looking for a new Toyota or pre-owned vehicle, Rudy Luther Toyota has something for everyone. Every vehicle comes with a Luther Advantage. 10 cents off fuel and car wash discounts at holiday stations, Luther Advantage warranty, and 5-day return policy on pre-owned vehicles. Located just 5 minutes west of downtown Minneapolis, off 394 and General Mills Boulevard. And they're also hiring. Want to join the team but don't know where to start? Visit rudyluthertoyota.com today.
As promised, our special guest for the first edition of Dawn of Sports is Mark Rosen. He needs no introduction, so I won't introduce him. You know who he is. We brought in Mark for the last couple of segments, and then we're just going to have a nice little chat at the end. But we're going to do a segment with Mark here and Dawn. And this segment is called What They Don't Tell You.
Oh, boy.
And this is our segment about what happens behind the scenes, sometimes behind the scenes at our offices or on location, sometimes in clubhouse and locker rooms. And I have one that I'm going to start off with that'll let you guys sit there and take the pressure off of you.
Oh, okay? I like that.
This will give you time to think of your own. So this is the kind of story we are going to be telling you in the future. So I come up here to cover the Vikings in 1990. And my first couple of years on the beat, during the middle of a bad season, the Vikings put a claim in on Chris Carter. Chris caught a lot of touchdowns for the Eagles, but he had a lot of off-the-field problems. He had addictions. They finally got tired of him. They cut him. The Vikings are in the middle of a bad season. They put a waiver claim in. They bring in Chris Carter at the end of the season. Chris comes in, and he was kind of as advertised at first, very talented, but kind of undisciplined. Then he realizes that this is a chance to get his life right. So next training camp, I'm watching him, and this guy's catching everything. He looks fantastic. He's engaging. He looks into it. You know, it looked like a different human being than the one we first met last year. So back those days, back when access was a little more free flowing than it is these days, I'm down in Gage Hall. I'm staying in Gage Hall in Mankato during covering training.
Oh, you
camp.
poor thing.
And one of the things we did was I would just go down to the lobby and just wait for people to walk by. And I'd sit there and talk to Tony Dungy for half an hour and Monty Kiffin for half an hour. And Bernsey would come by and cuss at me.
Obviously, he wasn't on TV.
And
He did not have deadlines.
Exactly. Well, I had deadlines, but during lunch hour, that's when I caught most of these people.
Sure.
So anyway, one day I see Chris Carter walking by, and he was known to be pretty surly. I said, Chris, you know, I call him over and he said, what? I said, I want to tell you your story. Can we sit down and talk? He said, he thinks about it. He goes, all right. I'm going to tell you my story. And if you do right by me, we're going to be good. And if you don't do right by me, I'm going to punch you in the eye.
Wow.
And I said,
He went straight to violence.
yeah, I went, okay. So like the next day we sit down and he tells me his whole story. I write it. And of course, you never really know as a writer, sometimes you write something you think is positive and people get mad. Sometimes you write something not tough and they think it's fair. You never really know what the reaction is going to be. So I had no idea. I thought he might just walk up and punch me the next day. He comes up to me the next day. He says, all right, we're good. And actually, he was fantastic with me up until I left and covered baseball and lost touch with him for a couple of years there. He was fantastic with me. So that was kind of the way it went back then, where there was no PR person involved. You were either going to get along with somebody or not, and there was no intermediary whether it went well or not. So that's my story. Dawn, do you have one lined up?
I do. So, there's one I was going to tell from the college hockey world, but I'm going to stick with the Vikings.
All right.
And this is when Randy Moss was with the team. So I came in 2004. And so I'm new. So this was before he left the team and came back. So he was there. And so you go into a locker room and you're trying to figure out what the dynamic is, right? Because I was coming from Chicago and, the Bears ran things a little differently. So we're in the locker room and nobody is going over to Randy Moss. Like nobody. And so I want to know, is there a kangaroo court or something going on here? Because when I was covering the Packers before the Bears, Brett Favre talked on Wednesdays. You did not talk to him in the locker room. You could say, hey, wouldn't talk about your food, but he did not want to be interviewed. So I wanted to know what the deal was. And so I asked, I don't know if it was, Dark Star or it was somebody, right? I said, I don't know. Is there a kangaroo court? What's going on here? And he goes, well, what do you mean? I go, nobody's talking to Randy Moss. They go, he's a jerk. I go, what? He's Randy Moss. I don't care. Like my boss would love if I got him. So they go, well, you can go ahead. I go, but I'm not going to get in trouble. Like I'm not stepping on any invisible line or something like that. They're like, no. So I'm like, okay. So I go up to him. His back is to me. He's at his locker. And I said, excuse me, Randy, may I ask you a couple of questions? He didn't even turn around. He went, hell no. Right. And I started laughing. Right. And I turn around and I go, okay, thank you very much. And I'm walking away. He goes, hey, why are you thinking me? I said, hell no. And I said, and I'm laughing. I said, well, my job is to ask you. You don't have to talk to me. Right. And I'm smiling. And I said, so thank you. He's like, and you're thanking me. And I said, yeah. And I walk away and he goes, hey, new girl. I go, yeah. He goes, I like you. So I went from new girl to ma'am later.
Right.
Because then he was traded. So that's the relationships that you establish, right? Because someone goes, well, I go, he's a jerk, see? I go, but he's not mad at me. Like, he doesn't know me. I don't care. I'm not upset that he said no. I thought it was funny. Maybe that's the Boston in me. I don't know. Hell no. I was not offended.
We Midwesterners, we get upset.
You might have been upset. I thought it was funny. So then he gets traded, right? So my boss sends me to cover him at the Raiders. And so I'm there with Shelley Smith. And she's like, hey, you're in Minnesota. You ask the question. I go, all right. Well, I don't know. I'm new girl. He doesn't know me. And she goes, so I asked a question and I asked him about, how hard it is to leave Minnesota. And he starts gives the best answer about it's a divorce and da-da-da-da-da, right? And she's stepping on my foot going, ask another. So I ask another. So at the end, it's all right. And then he comes back, right? And then we're in New England. The fateful thing.
Oh, yeah.
So we're after the game and we're all around his locker and everyone's waiting and he's ignoring everyone. And so finally some of the beer, I was like, forget this. I got a deadline, right? So I'm still standing there and his back is to me. And I go, excuse me, Randy. and he doesn't even turn around. I go, are you going to answer questions? And he looks around, make sure no one else is there. And he looks at me. He goes, I'm going to the podium. And I said, what? He goes, I'm going to the podium. And you don't want to miss it. And he leaves and I turn around and I don't know if it was Jeff Anderson or who from the PR staff, but I turn around and I go, he's going to the podium. He goes, no, he's not going to the podium. I go, oh no, I'm not asking. He told me he's going to the podium. And oh no. Yeah. And so we all run in there. Full circle right before he comes in and, he's being honored to go into the, I used to call it the Ring of Fire when I first got here. I learned it's the Ring of Honor and all this stuff.
Randy, it was the Ring of Fire.
All right. And so he let, of course, Sid ask the first question. Go, Sid, ask the first question. And then after that, he goes, okay. He goes, next, ma'am. And I'm like, oh, that's me. I'm not new girl. I have made it. So that's, you just have to establish yourself. Like I wasn't offended. And he thought that was funny. And I thought he was funny.
He was the most schizophrenic player probably I've ever been around. I mean, I remember in '98 when he came here, he was really distrustful of most adults, period. And we could see that in his documentary. So he would do the obligatory interview at training camp in '98. And of course, that's when he blew up and had, the rookie season to remember. And Jim, speaking of Chris Carter, I had established a relationship with him. And as you guys know, a lot of athletes are really superstitious. So Chris would make a habit starting actually with the first game, even though Moss had the big game they opened up here against Tampa Bay, where we were allowed on the field. We go down on the field for the last 2 minutes, and then we could interview the players as they were walking off the field.
Yes.
I interviewed Chris when he was walking off the field, since they won that game. And then the next week in St. Louis, they won that game. I did the same thing. So he would make a habit out of making sure that I would be the only one that could interview him on the field as we were walking off. It would never be a stop and chat, as Larry David would say.
Right.
It would be a walk and chat.
Walk and talk, right?
But
right.
he would do it every single time, and it worked like a charm. Of course, fast forward to the year 2000, which eventually ended with the 41 donut game. I remember being in New York, and his agent said to me, "You tell all the Viking fans they're going to have a really big night tonight. I mean, this is going to be something to celebrate." And I had Carter all lined up. Well, I left at halftime because I had to catch an early flight. But Moss was, Jim, as you guys know, Moss would either be the most electric interview you could possibly be around, where he would look you right in the eye, and all of us would be crowded around his locker. He rarely, if ever, did the news conference in the adjacent room at the Metrodome. But he would sit and talk to you. Otherwise, he would just say, "Get out of my locker." It would just be depending on his mood of the day. But, man, he was dynamic when he wanted to be. He was really good when he wanted to be, for lots of reasons.
Well, he was very smart.
Yes, he was.
And he had reason to not trust people.
Yeah.
And I did a piece on him after they drafted him. I went and spent time in West Virginia with some of his people. Went to see the so-called house where he grew up, which is not much of a house, in a very depressed, impoverished area. I'm not sure I would have trusted many people if I'd grown up like that either.
Yeah.
And I remember, talking to the Vikings, he didn't like doing interviews. And I think it was as much. Some athletes don't do interviews because they're just jerks.
Right.
Not a large percentage, but some. I think Randy just wanted to control situations. And I remember telling the Vikings, "Hey, I'm doing this major story on Randy. I've talked to everybody you ever played college football with. I've been to West Virginia. I've talked to his college coach. I talked to people at Florida State." I said, it would look silly if I run this story and Randy didn't talk. And the Vikings were good to deal with. And they said, "Okay, we'll get him for you. We don't know when we can get him, but just be on your toes." So they called me on and say, "Hey, he'll talk. He'll talk right now outside the locker room. You need to rush out here." So I rushed out to Winter Park. I go down and talk to him, and he gave me an incredible interview. But in that interview, and I remember having talked to his agents, and they were all like, "Hey, Randy's the pride of West Virginia, and he's what we're all about." Randy ripped the entire state of West Virginia in that interview.
Wow.
And it was like, he was not giving them credit for his upbringing. He was saying that was not a good place.
He overcame it.
Yes. Yeah. And I know a lot of people from West Virginia were absolutely crushed, but he was smart and he was brutally honest. And you had to be, if you wanted to talk to him, you had to be ready for both those things.
Yeah, I don't know if any of you thought he'd end up being such a prominent role in the media, especially
No.
NFL. I never thought so.
I did not.
And it's interesting because as time went on, and obviously, as you mentioned, Sid was always his favorite, and I think he just felt like he was kind of a father figure to him. But he was always great, and he was always wanting to, maybe because I was a familiar face, but he would always made time to talk and was fantastic leading up to his Hall of Fame coronation, basically here during the Super Bowl week.
I also think if you found the time to show up for the things that he did as charity work, because
Correct.
he did a lot that he never gets enough credit for.
But he didn't want a lot of credit. He didn't want the publicity for a lot of it.
No, but if you showed up, like his fishing, right? Like,
Correct.
even he was smart about who was there.
He would remember.
He had a whole bunch of kids once at US Bank Stadium too, and was doing some stuff for them. And I remember I think one of the only two, it might be me and Dave Schwartz. I think it was Dave Schwartz. Were there, and he noticed, like, because he looked around to see like who's here, like 4 hours before the game,
Right.
Because I don't think these athletes get enough credit for a lot of the work that they do They spend so much time getting ready, playing games with their family, but what they do for charity. And he does it because he loves it and he wants kids to survive and thrive like he did. Like it's more than just showing up and putting his name on it. I think it's a personal thing for him.
Remember, he always used to hand the football down that one end of the end zone.
Yes.
Scored a touchdown. He'd hand it to some kid either in a wheelchair or whatever. He would recognize that and would never forget to do that. Hand him the football.
I still remember going back to the locker room scenes. One of my colleagues walked up to him one day. It was like 98, and Randy's having the year of all rookie years. And my colleague just kind of cold walks up to him and goes, hey, what's your dog's name? Because he had seen him with his dog. And Randy looks at me and goes, Nanya. And he goes, Nanya? What kind of name is that? He said, none of your business.
That's the best.
That was quite a cast of characters they had.
I mean,
that's funny. See?
That's funny.
Honestly, that 98 team, it's a shame that they didn't win that NFC title game, and a shame that they didn't stay healthy in that NFC title game so they could win it and go on to win the Super Bowl, because that was the best team in the NFL that year.
Right.
And the characters and the talent, Carter and Moss on the same team. Randall Cunningham having his best year, Robert Smith, Leroy Horde, David Palmer, Robert Griffith, Ed McDaniel, John Randall.
I did my Sunday night shows with those two guys every Sunday night, and it was must-see TV because they'd give me the silent treatment half the time. But it was something that they were not only a bunch of characters, but the best team, and that's the one that crushed. I mean, I physically felt ill after that game. But you're right, Jim. They had Randall got hurt in the previous game against Arizona. He was playing on one leg against Atlanta, and their defense was beaten up. I still think they would, the Denver game, the Super Bowl probably would have been 38-35 or something, but they were the best team in the NFL that year, no doubt.
And I left out Randall McDaniel, who I always say on our football shows on this network, what I do with Jeff Diamond, Randall McDaniel is as good a football player as I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Not the most important position.
The most dominant.
You can't back it up with stats, but in terms of winning his position every play, he's as good as anybody I've ever seen.
I agree.
You talked about, Rosie, about being just so crushed about it, because people always just assume that you're going to be a fan, but these guys and you appreciate talent. But as a young girl growing up in New England, people would be like, how do you know so much about some of the teams? You didn't get here till 2004. And I said, my mother loved the Vikings. My mom, you did not talk to her when football was on in the house. My dad played it and he couldn't, he was more of a baseball guy. My mom. And so I remember thinking, Mom, I go, it's the Patriots and the Vikings. I said, why the Vikings? I'm trying to think family connection. And she's like, and she called me Dawn Marie when she was serious or when I was in trouble. So, I still shudder to this day. My friends know not to call me by my middle name, but she looked at me, she goes, Dawn Marie, I love myself a good underdog. And she's like, I love the Vikings. And she was so crushed. She was so crushed. So I was like, wow. And so she was beaming when I'm like, Mom, I'm covering the Vikings. She's like, what?
I'll also say, we're all somewhat of the same generation. When we grew up watching the NFL, when you got to watch an NFL game, it was a big deal because they weren't all on TV.
No.
And the branding was brilliant. I mean, you immediately identified with the horn on the Vikings helmet, or the weather in Minnesota, or the star in Dallas, or the
frozen
Patriot
tundra,
logo. I mean, or the Packers. It became the world's biggest sport, or the North America's biggest sport, for a reason. It was so easy to identify with these teams. Mm-hmm. And Bud, in all of the videos we see now of Bud talking, he talks about how important it was to be a Viking and what that lore meant. I mean, Mark, you emceed the Bud ceremony. It was so well done. I mean, what was that like for you to be up there talking about Bud Grant?
Surreal. I mean, I grew up listening to my parents talk about watching Bud Grant at the University of Minnesota. And then even though he didn't play on a regular basis for the Minneapolis Lakers, they'd go to all the Laker games, and George Mikan was there. My mom had a huge crush on Bud for the longest time. He was a handsome guy. Oh, yeah. And so when I finally, when I got around to being part of the media, my dad, of course, was, took me to games when I was a kid, and being intimidated by Bud, as a lot of people were, because he'd never call you by your first name for the longest time. And finally, when he did, it was like, God, he said Mark. I couldn't believe it. And then fast forward to, earning his trust and as you say, Dawn, just being there. And, I could cover all the training camps, and he, took a liking to me. He told me to get a haircut a couple times. He explained how the monarch butterfly down in Mankato would be flying to Mexico. And I said, I have no idea what you're talking about, but I thought it's going to St. Peter or something. And then, fast forward to obviously, having this relationship with him, being in Canton when he got inducted in the Hall of Fame, when Sid introduced him and he was crying, talking about his dad, and that showing that emotion, which no one ever expected to see out of Bud Grant. And then having this, kind of post retirement. I remember being down in New Orleans. I'm talking about crushing games. The 2009 championship game. He was the honorary captain. And I'll never forget. I mean, the look on his face. We went, had to go down the locker room and interview. Here's Adrian Peterson standing with his hands on his hips after losing that overtime game to the Saints. And Bud's down there, and he just looked at me, and he did that thing where he just kind of went, turnovers will kill you every time. And that's all he said. And it was like, I felt so bad for him because this was, he was literally there as an honorary captain for the, and that would have been his moment to say, hey, the team's going back to the Super Bowl, even though it was Favre and the whole 9 yards. But it was surreal because these were bigger than life personalities, and for Bud and being around Alan Page, Jim Marshall, who may be my favorite human being of all time, and Carl Eller and all these guys, and because they didn't have free agency, so the same team would be there every year and year after year after year, and the way that Bud kind of held his ground, it was just fascinating watching him work the media and work people around him. He was always in control. I don't think he ever said anything that he regretted, like, oh, man, I put my foot in my mouth over that, because he would pause and then answer it. Or reporters would come in after a game, and they put tape recorders in front of his face. He goes, I'll talk to you guys in a little bit. Put the tape recorders down. And so then he'd talk to the Ralph Reeves of the world, or Sid, or whomever, although Sid had his tape recorder all the time. But, yeah, it was just interesting watching him work the media and work people around him, but just surreal, because I learned so much about common sense from him, more than any other person in my life, honestly. He was just wise about a lot of things, and I still carry my daughter, to much my chagrin, still knows she rolls her eyes when I say, don't worry about things you can't control, all that kind of stuff, and stuff I learned from Bud, but it's true. I mean, it still sticks with me to this day, so it was pretty surreal for someone who grew up in the Twin Cities to be able to be a big part of his day, and even for the opening game when they had all the players, coming back, with the Super Bowl team come back, and what took place with that. And man, it's kind of sad too. I mean, it's hard to see these guys and the ravages of the game taking a toll on them. Obviously, they've lost a bunch of them. Even further past generation, with Matt Blair and Fred McNeil and Wally Hilgenberg, a lot of guys I was really close with. But even seeing the toll it's taken now on Jim Marshall and Alan Page and Carl Eller in particular. I mean, age does that, but it's more than that.
It's the game too.
It's the game, yeah, and it's filtering down to the next generation now too, that we're seeing. So there's a sadness that's involved, but also mad respect for people that I admired so much.
When you talk about mad respect, one thing I really loved from that ceremony, and one thing that stuck out to me, is Bud always said that his family was more important, and time with his family was more important than the game. At a time when that was not cool to say,
No.
really, right? Because they're like you said, trying to build up the NFL. And I just thought, wow, what a cool full circle moment right now, because I think now in our lifetime, we're getting back around to put your phone down,
Right.
spend quality time with people, family matters. That for Bud, he didn't care who was on that ship with him or not. He was sailing that like, I don't even care about that. I'm like,
It's
I'm
one of
going
the
to my
reasons
cabin.
why he couldn't stand Lombardi.
Hmm.
And when he got Jerry Burns out of there, he couldn't stand Lombardi, not because he didn't think he was a good football coach, but because he slept in his office, basically. He
Yeah.
wouldn't put family first, or even close to second or third. And he talked about it openly. He goes, I don't care. I mean, my family was more important.
Yeah.
You know, and I'd hear it. I was doing the Bud Grant show. He'd come in on a Sunday night, and maybe after a tough loss, and I'd see him on the phone, and I thought maybe he's talking to one of his coaches, saying, "Look, we can't do this again, that again, whatever." And I overhear part of the conversation he was making. What time are we meeting at the Duck Blind tomorrow morning? I mean, that's who Bud was. But people should never mistake that for his lack of competitiveness.
Correct.
I don't care if he was playing handball, racquetball. He wanted to beat your ass. I mean, he wanted to win and win badly. So people misinterpret it like, well, family first and da-da-da. BS. I mean, yes, but...
Yes, but if family was playing checker night, he was going to win.
He was going to win, and he wanted to win at every single thing he ever did. He didn't get to the position he was in by not caring. I mean, using that term loosely. Yeah.
And he lived that. He lived in a modest house. He didn't go sign on with the New York Giants to make extra money.
Right.
He could have made more money. He could have marketed himself. He could have lived a different life completely. And that's what I liked about Bud, is that he was the guy he was portrayed to be.
Well, because he grew up in the Depression, he valued the dollar, and to a fault. I mean, I mean, people would laugh about it, but still having his office at Winter Park and being able to pump his own gas there, and getting his own had to have his own minnows instead of buying minnows at a bait shop, and I mean all the stuff that he would take advantage of, or when he would do a commercial. You got to pay me in cash. Yep. I don't want to check because I have to claim that on tax.
Right.
He knew all the angles.
He knew it.
And he worked them. And the garage sale, the rest of it. But that was Bud. I mean, people who grew up in that era, that's the way they lived their life. And so he was consistent with it. And that's why he lived in the same house as he did when he moved in here in 1967. And still, to this day, I think they're finally selling it, obviously, since Bud's passing.
I remember talking to one of his sons, and he said, "Yep, we almost lost him." And I mean, "What do you mean almost lost?" He said, and this is talking about Bud as a young man. He said, "Yeah, Bud, at one point in his life, just decided he was going to go off and live off the land. Just go build a cabin in the woods, live off the land. We'd never see him again."
You wouldn't.
And he was kind of close to doing that. And they were like, "No, Bud, why don't you try this profession first over here, see how it goes. The woods will always be there."
Right.
And then, of course, he becomes a Hall of Fame coach.
Of course.
But you spoke to it, Rosie. It's kind of a toxic term to use now. If companies say we're a family, right? Like they always say, run now if your job uses that word. But he instilled that in the players, and I know it was a different era, and guys stayed with the team. But their loyalty, their love, just how they speak of Bud, that he commanded respect, but he never raised his voice and yelled at them. He treated them like men. But the bonds that all of those men have to this day, yes, the sport of football, but also Bud Grant. And I think that is kind of a different family he built altogether.
And I don't care if you're black or white, or if you came from poverty, or if you came from well-to-do, whether you're an Ed Marinero or you're on the other side of the coin. I mean, I saw that with the reunion they had, and hearing the players talk at length about Bud and what he meant to all of them. Jeff Wright, the common sense that he instilled in all of them, and as you say, the loyalty. I mean, it's something that's just unique, and it's a pleasure to be around that group, because they realize how precious these years are, because it's not going to be like this for much longer. And I had players come up to their sons, like Brent McClanahan's son. He goes, "Well, I don't think my dad will be back here because he's got some real serious health issues right now. This is probably the last time he'll be here." But even Alan Page, who had major differences with Bud over his weight, I remember telling I drove to Alan Page's house. I found out, this is long before we had these cell phones and everything, that Alan was being traded. I literally knocked on his door, and Diane answered the door, and I said, "Is Alan here?" He goes, "Yeah, why? What's going on?" I went, "Well, he's been traded to the Bears. I wanted to get his reaction." She goes, "What?" Wow. They hadn't known yet.
Wow.
Because they hadn't.
Right.
Jim Finks or whomever they hadn't picked up the phone.
Right.
Jim Finks wasn't on Twitter.
No, he wasn't on Twitter.
He wasn't on Twitter.
Or Adam Schefter wasn't around.
Just text him.
Yeah.
Right.
So and Diane remembered that story for the longest time, and but Alan was front and center. We had that reunion a few weeks ago at TCO, for instance, and he came. He honored him, even though they hadn't big differences, Alan wanted to be there to honor Bud, which is saying something.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
That's great stuff. You know what? I think we're just gonna
Well,
end it.
I have.
Go ahead, Dawn.
I
please.
just have one thing, because for right now I'm having a surreal moment, because I met you years ago, right when I was covering the Packers, and
Yeah, I think
for
I
some
actually met
reason-
you in Boston on a Twins trip.
It
a
might
long
have been
time
a
ago,
Twins trip. Like, so I
in
met you
Fenway.
years
so
before.
This would have been mid '90s, probably.
Yeah, and then exactly,
Yep.
and then touch base again. You were covering a Green Bay Packers story, and I was covering the Packers living in Milwaukee. And so now I'm here, and with Mark. So I was working behind the scenes at CBS Sports in New York, and I was a stage manager for their baseball, and I came to Minnesota. And it was Jim Cott, who's like my second dad,
Right.
and I believe Mitch Robinson was the
Ted Robinson.
Ted Robinson.
Right.
Yep.
Ted Robinson, because then later, because I had 2 years with Ted and then Greg Gumbel. So Ted Robinson was there. And they said, all right, so I just flew in because I still lived in Boston. So I just flew to wherever the games were. So we flew in. And of course, Kitty was from here.
Right.
Ted was from here. They knew everyone. And we said, yeah, well, we're going to have our meeting and then we're going to go to Rosen's restaurant for dinner. And then after Rosen's restaurant, like, Rosie won't be there. I'm like, who's Rosie? Who's Rosen's restaurant? Like, well, I don't know Minnesota. They go, well, after we're going to go visit him at CCO.
Oh my
We're gonna
God.
get a
I don't
tour.
remember this.
And so I was like, okay, and I'm like, right out of college.
Right.
I'm the only female on the crew, right? And Kitty was like, my dad he protected me, he was
Right.
like, but even the young BAs that they called them on the staff, so we had fun. We would just go to these different cities. And so we get there. The food is fantastic, by the way, at Rosen's.
Well, Mark,
It was very good.
fantastic.
Mark did a lot of
Yes.
work in the back.
I sure
Slaving
did. I was
away,
slaving
flipping
back
those
there in that
burgers.
kitchen.
But going to see, so of course you weren't at the restaurant, you were working. So we go to CCO and I'm getting the tour. Now, the only other TV station I had known were the two that I interned at and worked at in Boston, WBZ, and then TV 38, that kind of thing. And I'm walking around and I just remember he's super tall, right? Booming voice. And you were the friendliest, most gracious person. And the funny thing is, I think I told you this story when I first got here, and you're like, I don't really remember, but I do remember there was a young girl that I was thinking, she's holding her own with these guys,
Yeah.
because I was like the kid sister on the crew. But I always remembered Mark Rosen from that day. And then when I got here, and we just made, and I didn't dare tell you that story. Like,
No.
do you remember meeting me?
Well, I wish you would have.
But I think I
but-
waited a year or two and told you, and you're like, yeah, I kind of remember I remember there was a girl there holding her own. I was like, and I just want to say this to both of you, the fact that I don't forget things. I do have a partial photographic memory, so I'll remember like the time and
Right.
whatever. Helped me in school, thank goodness. I just want to thank you because for myself, a young woman coming up in the business, to meet men that are at the top of their game, and I'm behind the scenes. I haven't even gone on air yet. I didn't even know if I wanted to be on air. To meet such great people that they show that you could be at the top of your game and kind and nice and gracious and funny in yourself. Because, when you're kind of climbing the ladder, you meet a lot of different people that think they should act a certain way.
Right,
And they're mean and
right.
they're this. And then you're like, well, I'm looking at Jim Cobb, I'm looking at Mark Rosen and Jim Souhan and Greg Gumbel. And these gentlemen are gentlemen. They're talking to me. I'm like, on the smallest of the crew level. And that kind of thing. So I just wanted to thank you.
Well, you're welcome.
And here we are, sitting here years
I know.
later.
And you could have picked
Brandon.
a better role model than Jim Cott. I mean, talk
Yeah.
about, again, as a kid growing up in Minnesota, Jim Cott was, arguably one of my favorite pitcher. Broke my heart in 1967 when he got hurt and could not finish up that 2-game series in Boston where the Twins needed to win one game. They didn't have divisional playoffs, Jim, as you know, and Dawn. They had to win the game.
Mm-hmm.
And I cried like a baby when they couldn't finish off that series because they would have gone to the World Series 2 years after they were in the World Series. I thought
Right.
this is going to be a great chance for him to win it. And Cott got hurt, and I was like, oh my God, on the mound, he hurt his arm or something. I remember, but and then being able to work with Jim many years later is like pinch me moment. I mean, Jim Cott, are you kidding me?
Well, and I was
Oh,
in
wow.
Boston when I first met him. I was in Boston, and I was stage managing for the home crew, with Sean McDonough.
Sure.
And I forget who else was with him at the time. And later it was Jerry Remy who was with them. But so it would be Sean. And so Green Line was the company that farmed us out, right? And they're like, hey, we need someone to work with the Minnesota crew. And no one wanted to. They wanted to stay with their hometown, guys. And I'm like, yeah, sure. I'm like, because I'm thinking I'll just meet more people. So, I remember doing that and working behind the scenes. So it was the local crew. And Jim said, hey, and I was still in college. He's like, I was on a radio show and I got a gift certificate. I'm not going to use it. And it was like this place, Chow Bella on Newbury Street, right? It's like a $100 or $200 gift certificate, back then, right? And I'm like, this could feed me and my roommates for 2 weeks. We can get all the leftovers, right? And so I wrote a thank you note and I found the address and I mailed the thank you note. But after that, every single time, I found out later that they requested me to work those games, and then there's such a small crew, you could do more, right? And so then when Jim went to CBS, he goes, hey, it's kind of like Bud Grant in a way, like it's kind of calm. Hey, so someone from CBS might call you. I put your name in to be traveling with the crew, but it may not mean much. But so if someone calls you, that's what it's about. And of course, when they call me, I'm like, yeah, I'm thinking I'm getting an interview. They're like, so we'll see you Saturday at Yankee Stadium. I'm like, what? They're like, if Jim Cott wants you, you're in. And so
that's
for
how you
4
get your
years,
foot in the
I
door.
worked.
That's how you do it.
And Jim Cott's the best. And I'm so happy he made it in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Not only is he a Hall of Fame pitcher, but you combine what he did on the mound with his ambassadorship and his broadcasting. He has to be in the Hall.
Yeah, 100%.
And little known fact, he had amazing socks.
Yeah, he loves his socks.
He had a good sock game.
He was way ahead of the sock game.
He was.
Long before other people started wearing wild
before
socks.
Nino Niederreiter.
Yes.
Yes, before Nino's socks.
Jim Cott
had
ahead.
the socks. He was like, hey, Donnie, how's my moss? And I had to check his hair. He called it his moss. And he's like, and how about my socks? And I'm like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
See, Jim Cott talks the way Roy Smalley should talk. Because Roy Smalley, we've never seen him, Brandon and I have never seen him with a hair out of his face.
No,
or
perfect.
not dressed perfectly and without perfect socks.
There you go.
Right.
Oh, perfect socks.
Yeah, so there's a great legacy there, Jim Cott and Roy Smalley on talking with hair.
Jim Cott also saved this face. He saved my career, actually, if you think about it.
Baseball coming at you?
Yes, in Detroit before they had
He
the
could
new
always
one.
field his position.
He sure could. We won those gold gloves.
Yeah, and one day I'm like, why are you wearing your glove? He goes, oh, we're in Detroit. This is the old stadium. We're right behind the batter's box. And we're low. I go, what does that mean? He goes, foul balls come in all the time. And I'm like, okay. And so he was here. And so you can't see it. So I sat to his right. And so, of course, he had the glove. He's a lefty. He had the glove in his right hand. Thank goodness. Because literally flashing leather means so much to me right now. Because all I remember is, whoosh, and I go, what just happened? And then he had the baseball in his glove. And I was like, oh, my God.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So
Okay, you just reminded me of a story. I'm in the Tampa Bay press box covering a Twins-Rays series like 95 or something like that, right? And same thing. Fairly low press box behind home plate. It's late. I'm on deadline, so my head is down. I'm not even paying attention to the game, just trying to get my stuff done. And I hear a whistling sound, and I look up, and a ball smashes into the back of my laptop, hits it so hard that it smashes it down on my keyboard, smashes the screen, and the ball goes bounding off someplace. Puckett had hit a screaming foul ball, had crushed my laptop. I had to write my story on deadline, not knowing whether I'm typing actual words or not. I just had to hope that they were right. Sent it in. They said, yeah, it's close enough. So I see Puckett after the game. I tell him, hey, Puck, you smashed my... He goes, oh, Sue, do I got to buy you a new laptop? I said, no, it's okay. The Star Community will take care of it, but I just wanted you to know.
That's funny.
That's amazing.
All right, we're going to wrap up the show. Hey, thank you so much, Mark.
My
Thanks for
pleasure.
coming in.
Good luck with you guys. And,
I appreciate it.
I always enjoy talking with both of you. You know that.
And
I'll see you on Sunday.
You're right. You will.
And we're going to have to get Jim Cott on now that we've been telling Jim Cott stories. We're going to wrap it up. Just a final thought on anything in the world you want to mention. It can be sports, personal, business, whatever.
The personal part of it, since you just mentioned Puck, is that it just hit me really hard because I don't want to bring the room down.
No, it's okay. It's a real
but
show.
his ex-wife Tanya Puckett, and she got remarried to a pastor, just passed away, and she passed away from brain cancer.
Oh no,
so,
I didn't know.
Yeah, I thought maybe you'd heard. Yeah,
I missed that somehow.
Well, it wasn't. It just broke just a short time ago. I got a tip on it last night, and I didn't know. And then I heard that it was what my late wife passed away from, glioblastoma, and so she only 22 months, which was not much, but it hit me hard because Tanya was I worked with Kirby and Tanya when they were still together and worked on the Children's Heart Link thing and worked with their event quite a bit, and I kind of inherited it after Kirby decided to move on a different avenue, but Tanya was always very special. And I heard for those kids, for Catherine and Kirby Jr., because they're not kids anymore. Obviously, they're young men and women. But having gone through that and being a caregiver for as long as I was, Denise, sometimes she got diagnosed when she passed was 3 years. So 22 months is not a long time. It's the most aggressive form. And we all are touched. I know, Dawn, we've all, in one way or another, get touched by cancer. But this one hit me hard, and I feel bad for the family, and but it also kind of harkens back to appreciating, as we all have. You mentioned the relationships that you end up having in this business, both in our business, but outside of it. Whether it's a Jim Cott, whether it's a Bud Grant, whomever it is, we're very fortunate. And Kirby, of course. I get goosebumps thinking about him. I mean, I think about that man a lot more than I ever imagined. And the magnetism that he had and the way he played the game, and I don't care about all the warts he had personally, he was Kirby. And to kind of, the association with his ex-wife passing the way she did really hit home. So I'm sorry to hear about that, but I hope the family's doing well. And my thoughts and prayers with the Puckett kids.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. I did a piece on Kirby and his legacy, a while back, and I talked to the kids, and it was great to hear them sound so good. They were they were energetic and smart, accomplished people. It was really cool to talk to them, and it's just but tragedy does not escape us.
No,
it just doesn't.
It does not, and it doesn't matter what your gender is, your age, health history, nothing. I found out a lot about this, so. I know. I just saying those last 2 years, 22 months. It goes in a hurry. Very trying for young people like that to have to take care of your mom that way. So I wish them the best.
Yes. Thanks for
my pleasure.
Mark.
Thanks. Good seeing you guys as always.
And also thanks for all the things you do, all your charitable stuff, the way you just the way you treat people in the business. We really do appreciate it.
And congratulations on your wedding.
Well, thank you.
Yes.
Congratulations.
There's the ring.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, I hit the jackpot, no doubt about it. Yeah, I really did. So I'm very happy and kind of moving to a different phase of my life right now and kind of cut back a little bit on the radio work. But, you want to keep doing. I love what I still do. I love doing the show with you, Dawn, and the guys. Pre-game show, it's just a blast. I really do enjoy it. Hopefully we'll get a win. But more importantly, just the relationships. I mean, that's why I keep wanting to do it. When they ask me, I go, I love working with everybody that's on that crew, and it's just doesn't feel like work. Don't tell them that, but it doesn't.
Well, you made it a family too, and your wife Karen, who was a friend of mine beforehand.
You're right.
And so you want your girlfriends to marry good men, and you're always like eyeballing them, like, is he good enough? And then when I found out, you two, I'm like, this is Shangri-La.
Yeah.
This is perfect. So
she's great.
So many things come full circle.
They really do.
And
you got to keep moving forward. I don't care whatever advice I give people, whatever life throws at you. Got to keep moving.
Yep.
You
Be
just
grateful and move forward in love.
Right.
And
Correct.
and I love this format. Thank you, Jim, because we have time to talk about these things.
Yep.
That we can't fit in 30 seconds.
No.
I'm not
Wrap
rapping
it.
you. Wrap it.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you both.